You know, shouters, chest thumpers are nauseating. When men in comments leave or on videos talk about things they've gone through, there are those of you that come in and see at this point it's become this contest to see who can thump their chest the most and thrash around the most vegetation and intimidate others the most, and that's not what this is about. Now, there are times I have gone into classrooms, grade school or university, and I've had to do this. There are times I've had to do this in front of my own offspring because kids will test limits. This is when I'm dealing with children. This is not something I ever should have to do when I'm dealing with adults, ever, at any point. If you are going into either you're making videos or you're going into the comment sections with this chest thumping, vegetation thrashing, down talking to other men, you are not an alpha. Now, it is okay if you are some sort of leader in some kind of field, but again, we are not other species, and even the other species, namely wolves, about whom the scientists first coined these terms, are not as they were initially thought, and both scientists reported the same difference in observations. Wolves in captivity, what they first observed, and their wrong observations were taken by everybody and repeated. Then they both came back and reported wolves in the wild were actually family units. The so-called alphas were the parents, and the so-called betas and omegas were their offspring, and they would grow and start packs of their own later on. And the correct observation was never repeated. And this is what I've been talking about. I've been saying this. We're not the only race that's historically and scientifically and in every other way illiterate, but we don't get away with this stuff. Because look how their illiteracy is affecting us right now. We're sitting up here trying to justify other species mating preferences only to find out they don't even have them to begin with. Dumb nigga. So save your chest thumping for white folk. Save it for when the cops come around and start roughing some brothers up. Most of us ain't gonna interfere with that because we can't, but at least don't act like you can interfere with anything because you're just so alpha. Because see, Jonathan Price probably would have talked that same stuff at some point. It didn't help him. And I don't wish that he was dead. What I'm saying is it just didn't, this type of thing did not help him. So, some of y'all are getting up here bashing Stephen Clinkscales. Let me explain something to you. You don't blame Stephen for what he could not have possibly known when he was young. You congratulate him for what he figured out, and he has a right to be a hell of a lot more pissed off about that than what he actually is at this point. He figured it out at 22 largely on his own. How about you fuck the shuck up and let him explain it? You got a platform of your own, make your content and explain it. Some of you done so. You ain't doing a good job of it, but at least you've done it. Y'all can fuck the shuck up and miss me with that. Miss us with that. Dissing him for stuff like this. And this is in the comment section. I'm not talking about a video they did. And you see, I want to give a shout out to Obsidian as well, because see, Obsidian pointed out that Hafiz was trying to be all balanced and fair, and I try to do the same thing, but when you make enough observations, you come to realize that, God damn it, there are times you have to be one-sided. There are times when being one-sided is balanced and fair because things are already one-sided in the direction that makes things unbalanced and unfair. I.e., if you steal my car, balanced and fair does not mean that later we share the car. Balanced and fair means I get my car back, and if you interfere with that, I'll blow your father-mucking brains out in front of everybody for them to see, and then take my car back. And you don't do a goddamn thing about it. Now that's very one-sided. Vengeance is one-sided because the offenses are one-sided. So when you have something like this, you then have to be one-sided to counteract another one-sided injustice. You get it? That's exactly what's going on here. We want to be balanced and fair. And see, Hafiz shows that we men are taught to be balanced and fair, but we're not dealing with not even an opposition, but a colleague, or should-be colleague, that's doing the same thing, sadly. And so this is what makes it even worse. That we feel completely comfortable having to be balanced and fair with someone that's unbalanced and unfair, when the fair and balanced thing to do would actually be being one-sided. But we don't feel comfortable being one-sided, even when we're just plain out right and the opposition is wrong. And it shouldn't have even been an opposition to begin with. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. And I'm going to give another shout out right quick to Brother Anderson, there were two others in it. Oh yeah, Caesar Cannon and Selector Jaw for this. They have opinions and they can state these opinions, but they can do so in a way in which they don't talk down to and bash others. And another one is Jay Cash. A new one. He can give an opinion in a way that does not bash others. So these are examples. Now I'm going to leave you all with this. Keep this in mind. If anyone has to say how rich they are, well, look, let me start over again. And I want you to play this again when I'm done. Look at the minute mark on the video now. Mark this and come back to it and hear it a second time. The rich don't need to tell you how rich they are. The strong don't need to tell you how strong they are, and the honest don't need to tell you how honest they are. When someone has to tell you how or to what extent they are any of the three I've mentioned, they are not these things. They are further-mucking con men. Play that again. Meditate on it. Let that sit for a bit. Let it marinate. Because we got some cats here, they're con men and they ain't even trying to con you out your money. They're just trying to con you out of yourself. So that you won't be you trying to imitate them simply to validate them. And I come to realize one of the most important lessons my parents ever taught me about validation of others was that it was a fool's errand to pursue. You're not going to get it, especially in black circles. Let's just call it what it is. We're too busy chasing validation and then withholding it from each other. And you know what? I'm going to say the same thing about Muslims of any ethnicity. Same thing. One of the most revolutionary things I could suggest to either community right now at this point is that we start the practice of complimenting each other behind each other's backs. And how would most of us react to that? That tells you a lot. So consequently, not only are we very mean to each other, but we're very dumb while we're at it. We are terribly illiterate. And we're cold-hearted towards each other. Maybe that's one of the reasons I'm no longer pro-black. If enough of you niggas start doing this, I won't even be pro-black male anymore. And I will no longer care what the Klan or the cops do to those of us left behind, because I ain't living there. Thank goodness. Praise Allah for that. I hope this helps. Black heart, black mind, black out.